Welcome, everybody. We don't have a speaker today, so last minute, thanks to John Pomerly, he sent me what I thought was a really good video. It's 90 minutes long. I made it 28 minutes long, and I think you'll still enjoy it. And I'll give a little intro to it. And it's talking about some announcements in solid state batteries. And the reason I like the video, I'll explain when we get there. But I think it will be enjoyable for everybody. Okay, introductions. Who are you and how do you get around? Alan, you are left on my screen.
Okay, Alan Soule, and I get around as much on my bike as I do my Tesla Model 3 now.
And I'm Gerry Glaser because I'm next on the screen, and I'm moderating here. And I'm driving my Leaf because a friend of mine asked me to work on construction jobs with him. And so I actually get to drive from the house to the construction job and back each day. So it gives me something to do. Mike, you're up.
Morning, everyone. Yeah, I'm not getting around hardly at all, but actually I am in a market for a new or replacement EV. Either that or make a decision to keep the plug-in Optima we've got, but we got 60 days left on our lease extension. So I'm starting to surf the web and see what our next choices are.
And Andy walked away from the screen, and his audio keeps going in and out, and his video keeps going in and out, and he just left. So we'll skip him and come back to him.
I'm actually here.
Oh, good. Well, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us how you get around?
Okay, Andy Ferguson. I'm getting around on my bicycle a lot. And when that doesn't work, I back it up with a Model 3.
All right. David Heathcock, you're up.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Right now I'm getting around with my wife's 2007 Saturn Vue Hybrid. Ivani's still in the shop waiting for an upgraded single-speed gearbox to get repaired and replaced.
All right. Ray, you're next. It says your iPad, but I know you're Ray.
Yeah, I don't know why it says on my iPad. The problem is that my computer is busy upgrading its software, its operating system, and so I had to come in on the tablet, which I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
In any case, I'm Ray Alden, and I have been driving a car with 100% battery electric since 1992, and my current one is a golf cart.
Okay.
When I have to leave home, I drive a Model S 2018 driven by my daughter.
Okay, I got you renamed. Bruce, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Bruce Nyden. I live in Friday Harbor now. I've still got a parking lot full of electric vehicles that followed me up from down south mostly. Primary get-around vehicle now is a used e-Golf, which I purchased from our local dealer. He'll probably be tuning in periodically. He was very excited about attending the first part of the meeting last month. His name is David Griffin, so you might see him again. And I also finally connected with a contractor to kind of help me finish out my sort of hypothetical garage training facility that's currently got the Ranger EV complete with lead acid batteries and a new for me, 2008 Roadster that some guy in California let go of it, and I just had to snap it up. But it's got the cush spot in the warm garage at the moment. And my other get-around car is the Tesla Model 3.
Are you on telephone today? I see your screen is really black.
My screen is really black. Okay, I probably have a black screensaver.
Oh, okay. That's probably why you're really well, your camera's not turned on.
Not sure why that is. I'll investigate. But
all right, Lowell, you're up.
Okay. I get around for general errands and so forth around town in my Tesla. Model S, the one I bought from Bruce, and then for other occasions, well, we took the Tesla down to the city yesterday to pick up some art from that my wife had on display, and so that was a nice outing. That was as big of an outing as I had in a long time. It was very pleasant to be, driving in that very nice car on a nice long ride. But for other purposes, like, well, for example, for my bike rides, I have my bike rack is on my Leaf, so whenever I go and join my friends for a bike ride, I use the Leaf for that, which is a couple times a week sometimes. But that's and I'm not, I don't use my bicycle for practical things like going to the store. So, but I do.
You're kind of out of the way there too. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Woody, you're up, and what is that background?
Good morning. I think I'm, entering hyperspace or maybe going into a wormhole or something like that. It's a negative reality inversion. Anyway, so good morning, everyone. Woody Hastings. I don't get around. Seriously, I probably leave the house once a week, other than taking walks. But when I do go out, it's in our 2013 Chevy Volt with a V as in Victor. Still really hoping to get over to full electric one of these days, but neither me nor my wife June drive all that much. So anyway, not much of drivers. That's me.
And you might explain your work now. Your office is now permanently closed, is it not? As a result of
Yeah. So if anyone doesn't know, I work at the Climate Center. It's the name of our organization. It was based in Santa Rosa. It's now really a sort of a statewide organization. We've got people in Fresno and Stockton and Los Angeles and Marin County, and so we are, virtual. We gave up our brick and mortar office in April or May, I think, last year. And so, but that actually, it's turned out to be a benefit for us because, we were in the process of sort of transitioning to sort of statewide policy. Did a lot of work in Sonoma County in the early years, but really working state policy now. So it's fine that we're virtual. So yes, my office is this little 13 by 10 room that I'm sitting in here.
Well, it looks like you have all the space, so I wouldn't worry about it.
So Woody, what is that office in Sebastopol? I ran into.
So I can explain that one because this is how I found out about the office. I met with Ann Hancock, and Ann said, "There's a sign." When they closed the office, a friend of hers had open space in his building, and he said, "Okay, I'll store it for you." And so all of their furniture from their office is being stored here in Sebastopol. And I walked past that sign too, and I asked Ann about it, and she said, "I didn't know he put a sign up." So this is where the office furniture is stored.
Yeah, I've never been there, so I've heard about that. I know we have that space, but I've never been there.
Yeah, I wanted there was name collision or something like that, and she took about 4 weeks to get back to me, and we had a Zoom a week ago. Al, you're up next. Mclaughlin.
Yeah, hi, Al Mclaughlin. I'm not getting around much at all. I drive a 2019 I-Pace. That's it.
Okay, Mark.
Like everybody else, not getting around much. We have a 2013 Toyota RAV4 EV, and it used to be we'd charge up just basically, like 6 nights out of the week, and you know what the range of those things are. And now it's maybe twice a week that we charge it, so not getting around too much.
Yeah, Brad.
Hi, yeah, I'm Brad Morrison. Good morning. I drive a 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid, and I'm hoping to transition to an electric vehicle in the next year or two.
Good. There's going to be a lot of options for you.
Yeah.
David Harris.
Yes, we have our 2017 Bolt, but I just got a phone call from a friend whose daughter was driving a 2017 Leaf on Mendocino, and somebody pulled out in front of her, so car got totaled on Thursday, and he's looking for a reading on what's a good used option to replace that Leaf that got totaled.
When we get down through the presentation, I'll show you a slide. Maybe there's an answer to that. Tor,
okay.
You're up next, Tor.
Yeah, hey, just mostly getting around on my bike around town. And otherwise, we have a bolt that now I've extended it for the last time. I have to turn it in February. So just looking around for what's the next thing and debating it and going in circles. But there's apparently some good deals on bolts for leasing if you're interested in that. We've got to. You just get comfortable doing nothing. So, but we'll have to do something soon. So, thanks.
John, you're up next, and you probably weren't on when I said thank you to you because the presentation we're going to have today is a result of something you sent to me.
Okay. Cool. I'm John Palmerly. I work at Thunderstruck Motors, which is where we used to meet, and we handle all sorts of conversions for electric and from boats to motorcycles and cars. I drive a Nissan Leaf motor converted Geo Metro, a little green thing. Do that every day. It's like totally reliable. It makes me feel like I'm driving a production vehicle. And I thought I'd share with you just recently, mainly since COVID, we've had a huge increase in our business all around, from boats to cars and everything. And just this last week, we sold our 150th VCU, which is a vehicle control unit, something we invented to talk to the Leaf motor and drivetrain. So that means there's about it's probably 140 because about 10 of those might have been a different kind of motor that it controls too. But it's just really cool to think that in the world, this is from Australia to England and, Canada, everywhere. There's close to 150 Nissan Leaf motors that have been saved from the junkyard and are running around in vehicles. It's just cool. It's exciting.
Well, I think you just found out where you can find another motor.
You did? Oh, yeah. Yeah, see if the insurance wants to get anything.
Yeah. Andy Medell, you're up.
Hello. Well, electric bikes, and I guess I'll be talking about them next month.
Terrific.
7 years I've been using electric bikes, and that's my primary form, so I do consider it kind of a failure if I have to get in my Tesla and drive, but every now and then you gotta, get 30, 40 miles away, but you can pretty much use the bike for everything. And then I got a couple electric scooters too, that if you want super portable, stick under the arm, jump on the ferry.
Cool. Great. Marcus.
Yes, Marcus Nofi, and I have a 2014 Cadillac ELR PHEV and a 2018 Chrysler Pacifica PHEV. And right now I'm putting together a scope document for a conversion project. I'm looking to convert a Cadillac Elante eventually in the future here. So,
all righty, Sonia.
Hi everybody. I drive a Model 3, and I just learned that if I took it to England, it would have a boot and a fruit. Has anyone heard of that before?
Oh, sure. Yes.
All right. Hey, Zeno, you've got the sun coming right across there. We don't really see much of you. We see the sun coming through.
Oh, well, I'm here. I'll rearrange it when I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Zeno Schweiding. I live in Sebastopol. I'm not much of a technical car person. I have a Honda Insight that I probably bought out of environmental reasons maybe 13 years ago. So I don't see myself buying an electric car soon because my car still drives, and the embedded greenhouse gases in any car is kind of holding me back probably. I'm mostly a bike rider. I go 3-4 times a week to Forestville for recreational purposes here from Sebastopol. On the way back, I go shopping. But I use my car occasionally, maybe every 3 days or so for something else. I'm taking a course now with Coursera. It's about the 3 ways to think about mobility. So there's the engineering approach where you and mobility is a cost and you want to reduce it. So if you look at roads, you want to make sure that people flush through quickly, and there are other ways to think about it. So that's kind of my perspective, to think about the social, environmental impact of mobility, and to see how we can fit in new developments in Sonoma County with the emergency declaration, and how is electrification going to help us? What are the obstacles? What are the drawbacks? That kind of thing.
And eventually we will fix your electric scooter, thanks to Jim McGreen. We'll get that together.
Okay, Joe Panaro. I'm in a senior facilities, not getting around much. Had the car towed away. Bicycle, when I do go out, I got a bicycle, 2 bicycles.
All right, great, Joe. Cecilia, nice flower.
Thank you. I'm Cecilia. Excuse me. I drive a 2018 Model 3 when I do get out. And I had a friend recently get an electric car that I kind of, I guess, got her to do. So yay, excited about sharing the joy of EV driving.
Terrific. All right, that is everybody. On to the next slide. Oops, give me the right context here. Chapter business. This I haven't changed. This just number of people who have joined the NBEAA. Probably need some of you has access to the site to get new numbers for me on what our balance is from a treasury point of view and how many members we have. We're still looking for a group to form as outreach for NBEAA Press, so that if somebody has questions about EVs, that group could answer it, or if there's events that we can ultimately go to or set up, that group could be responsible for doing that. Also, every month I send a message out like this. If you find news items, write what you thought was interesting about the news item, responding to this, or just send the NBEAA team at this point. And then give me a link and it'll be included in the next month. Consider doing a talk. Find a speaker, find a video that you thought was worth sharing, and describe something that you decided to study. And I've already given more talks than I should give. And I know Alan probably feels the same way over the years because we're both fascinated by a number of things. We study them, we put them together, and then we share them. It would be great to hear other people do the same thing. Ellen's done it. We're looking for others to do it too. Join the club. We've been getting requests from a number of you, people you know who want to join the club. Thanks to Cecilia, if you go to nbaa.org, on the very first page, you're going to see join the club. And so if somebody clicks that, what happens is they go to this page and they can then join the club. And then that sends off a message to all of us that are managing the club group, and one of us will accept that person. After the person clicks here, if you already belong to the club, it'll bring up the site, and that's what you see on the bottom right-hand corner here. But otherwise, it'll say, okay, somebody will have you join eventually, right? And usually it's within, it's whenever somebody picks up their email. So it's going to be a short time. Okay, the other thing that's on here is previous meetings. So previous meetings, and if you click on that, it's going to take you to another page where you, if you're a member, then you get to get all of the presentations, and you can look at those presentations. Included at the bottom of the page is videos from the past meetings. And if you click on that, you'll end up going to the page that has all of the videos since we had the pandemic. So all of that has been set up now so that you can watch the videos of the previous meetings if you've missed them. Alan, you've got it. You're picking up.
So sort of along the lines that Gerry referred to a little bit earlier, we really need a new president that wants to, take the bull by the horns and run the chapter. As you all know, we're a chapter of the national group. I need to be out of the presidency by March. So just after the March meeting, one way or the other, I will have to be out of that position. And so we're looking for someone who wants to organize to be the president and run it. It's really not that much work, to be honest with you, especially the way it's organized now. And on the 14th of January, which is just 5 days away, the EAA is having a chapter leadership Zoom meeting. So those of you who may be interested can send an email to, I guess the best would be NBEAA, whatever the club, or info@NBEAA. That gets to me also, and I can forward what is on the screen now to you that would have the link to this Zoom meeting. But I'm really serious about this, and so I would really appreciate it if some people would show some interest and volunteer. That's what it is. It's a volunteer group.
So you know what happened a year ago when you made the same announcement?
Well, I didn't make the same announcement. This time I am resigning in March.
Okay. The problem is you've done such a great job.
Well,
you've been such a great face.
I appreciate you saying that, but like I say, March is it.
All right. Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll send out an email as well to all of the members of the club and solicit people who would be willing to be president. And in the next meeting, we'll have a discussion about that. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
All right, everybody agree? And would all of you please consider taking on the responsibility?
Like any volunteer organization, you get more out of it than you put into it. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
I mean, to be honest, I recognized in putting the program together, just that part that Alan did for years, how much time that takes. That takes a day or two a month of time to put the program together. And I keep saying, I'd like to give it to somebody else. But to be honest, I learn so much every time I do it that I go, oh, wait, how did I learn all of this stuff? Because, digging into it and finding out the other information. So it's been really useful for me. So I'll echo what you said, Alan. Yeah, you get more out of it than you put into it. So please consider somebody stepping up to be the face of the group. And this has been a very dynamic group. I hope you recognize we have members now. Bruce is here in Washington. Caleb is in Washington. He's not here today. We have folks from Nevada, from about 50 miles away. We have people who joined from Oregon. We have people who joined from London. So the group is extending since we got on Zoom. And so we'll find a way to do that when we start meeting in person again as well.
Well, I've had a discussion with who I guess last year's president of the EAA, and in hearing what she had to say, we have probably, if not the best, one of the best monthly meetings of any chapter of the EAA. It's really evolved into something good.
Here's the video for our previous meeting. I know that went over like a lead balloon. But again, I got more out of it than you guys did. And the video is posted. Yeah. Okay, not much going on during the pandemic other than events and offers. And the other one was back on that previous meeting, probably belonged there. And into the news. thanks to Cecilia, letting us know we have gone prime time. Lego now has an electric car charger set. So the house comes with an electric EV and a charge station in Legoland. So that was pretty interesting.
But it's a Scandinavian company, isn't Lego?
If it is a Scandinavian company, they have Legoland down in Southern California.
Oh yeah, I know. They have a few of those all around the world.
It's Danish company. Okay.
Danish. Well, I expect. Speaking of that, I just saw that the market share of EVs in oh no, sorry, it was the Netherlands. Was
the Netherlands? I think I don't know if I have a slide on that because somebody sent me an article on it. Right. We did cover part of that in the last meeting too, how that looked. Right. This one was interesting. I can't remember who sent it to me. Everybody talked about, no, pandemic didn't do much about CO2 emissions, but it actually dropped 7% year to year. The largest portion of the drop had to do with transportation. And in the one article that was sent to me, it showed this 7% and then compared it to the drops that occurred in 1981 and 2009 and 92 and 1945, for obvious reasons in 45, that this is the largest drop that we've ever had in emissions. But the same article said it was unlikely that this will be sustained as soon as the pandemic is over and starting to ramp back up again. The number that got me was this one. That reduction was equivalent to removing 500 million cars off the road for a year. That was an unbelievable large number. Anyway, roadway emissions down 10%, aviation emissions down 40%. Aviation is about 8% of emissions total. So the impact there. And you can see where the larger changes were occurring, mostly in the UK and in Europe. But even though our emissions reduced, there was growth in CO2 in the atmosphere at 2.2 parts per million in 2020. So our rate has reduced, but our objective is not there. I probably have the wrong title on this one. Did somebody send this to me or did I pull this one?
I sent it to you.
Okay, do you want to speak to it?
No, I mean, I think your slide covers it extremely well. I mean, from what my reading of the article, you hit these are the main points. Okay. Absolutely. I mean, it's really interesting that I found it was very interesting that in this case, larger is better. There's still lots of room to grow and still make it cost effective and so they really don't know quite what the limit is in terms of the size of wind turbines before you kind of level out and it doesn't make any more difference. But there's definitely going to be progress and there's going to be demand for larger and larger wind turbines and locating them in offshore locations.
What I found interesting in it was that the GE has been in the wind turbine business, and they actually bought a company to get into the business. But at this point, and then they weren't the leader, 2 football fields in diameter. Just imagine that. So manufacturing for the blades, since they're made as a single piece, has got to be done at the coast because they can only ship them out. And so the intention is for these windmills to be in the ocean. Now, this one you can actually see on the lower right-hand corner that they prototype. They did on the land, but they now have a large number of orders already. So the output for any one of these is for 12,000 homes worth of electricity.
What I'm curious to know is how you go about deploying these in the ocean, how constructing them out in the middle of the ocean, or presumably they are built on land and floated out, or I don't know how it's done.
But they're done in shallows, so there is quite a bit of work that's been done in the area already, and some of it's a little bit like oil platforms as well. But the other thing that I took away from the article, and I've been tracking this through the Stanford series, that BP and Shell are the two target companies that will probably buy the most of these, because both those companies said they want to be out of the oil and gas business sometime this century. They want to be energy companies. And so they've been very serious about making investments in alternative forms of providing energy.
And also their skills, obviously their existing skills in deploying oil rigs in the ocean will apply to deploying these in the ocean.
Yeah. They got orders already for 90 of these suckers. So that's going to be something. This one I picked up.
I'm going to add something to that.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, I had like two questions about this. One is, can you turn on and off these things easily? And so how's that going to affect like peak delivery, that kind of thing? And then the other thing, if you service this and you have to stop it, the bigger impact servicing has on the supply. So there seems to be some kind of management issue of the grid connected with how large you make these things.
Yeah, and so Zeno, the question was how much larger that they could make them was one thing, but the other thing as a takeaway, and I'm doing this from a numbers point of view, and I'm not an expert in this, but I did some study about 15 years ago when I was thinking of doing something else. The 13 megawatts is close to what a modest power plant looks like as far as its output. So if you took one offline, it's the same as taking off a power plant to service it. And we have a lot of those plants around. And the other thing with those plants is this. The grid, not so much the grid, but the transmission set knows how to deal with this, because many of those power plants that exist today that are fueled, you can't shut down easily. That is, you can't stop them and start them. The stop and start takes so long to do that they run all night long. And that's the reason that for many years after midnight, PG&E had to pay people to take electricity. Not you and me, but other places, because their plants generated so much electricity that they couldn't stop it from coming. And so it had to go someplace. And the same problem will probably occur here.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be interesting to see how they do all of this. And I'm sure more is going to be released as time goes on. My wife may be correct, my English, that the UK out California's California, that the word is out California's, is not California's. Basically, with us saying that no more fueled cars after 2035, the UK said, okay, we'll make it 2030. So no new fossil fuel cars can be sold in the UK starting in 2030. And with that, they accelerated rollout of charge stations. That's not that much money for it. And also throwing more money in for low emission vehicles, as well as battery manufacturing in the UK. Woody.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment that, I work in my work with the Climate Center, I work with a number of statewide coalitions, and several of them are pushing hard to get the governor, to get the state to, revise the 2035 goal there to 2030, because a lot of folks, it is doable. So I just wanted to suggest that the Auto Association could also, if it wants to and has folks that are interested, to get involved in that effort to push it to 2030.
So that's one of the reasons why the NBEAA press group, it would really be great if it formed, because that would be the place where that would occur and we could use that voice. Over the years, and I see it quoted often, Alan's the voice. And I don't think that the president necessarily needs to be the voice. I think that the club does it, And so I think that's the way to do it. It'd be great to see that group get formed too.
Yeah, if there's any
get the new president to form it.
Yeah, if there's anyone on the call that's interested in sort of helping on that, just contact me offline. I'll put my Climate Center
Hat on?
email address in the chat.
Okay, good. Quotes to remember. I ran across one, and I misquoted. Al Gore didn't actually say this, but he was quoting where it came from, which was from the Bloomberg New Energy Finance. Sales of internal combustion passenger vehicles worldwide peaked in 2017. I thought this was an interesting quote because it talked about not supply, but demand. And the same thing happened with fossil fuels. The supply of fossil fuels did not peak when, but the demand on fossil fuels actually did peak. And so we've passed peak demand on fossil fuels. Anyway, I thought they were good quotes. Very. So here's the answer for getting another vehicle. I saw this, an advertisement showed up my email. Notice the lease on the Leaf is half the price of the lease on the comparable fuel vehicles. That's all I have to say about that one. I saw that come in and I thought, well, they're affordable. $90, $100 a month for a Nissan Leaf. Now, this is a stripped down model, but that's a really practical vehicle for getting around, 150-mile range. So just about everything that you want to do on a regular basis is there.
Well, is anybody familiar with the industry to know what's going on with the money stream there? Because, you know,
a lot of it is in the case of the leases, because I have a lease, they take most of the inducements on their side. So they get them immediately with their business. You don't have to worry about your taxes and whatever else that goes along with it. So that's part of what happens with the leases. So David, that may be part of the answer. Go check with the dealer and say, hey, for $100, I'll give you $1,000, and for $100 a month, I have a brand new car. I thought this was interesting too. Did somebody send this to me, or I picked this up?
I did. Yeah.
You want to talk to it?
Sure. So Southern California Gas, right? Yes, gas, not Edison. Is going to have a trial where they mix cleanly produced hydrogen with natural gas and distribute it through the existing natural gas pipelines out to where it needs to go. And there they would separate the hydrogen from the natural gas and compress it for use, you know, wherever that it was needed to be used, which would include, of course, vehicles, but it could power homes, whatever. It could be used anywhere. But it's a way to transport it without having to compress it on the front end. You still have to compress it on the back end, but
yeah.
So I'm not. There's another slide here that we'll also discuss. I guess if for those customers that need hydrogen, it could be a good way to get it. But as a general distribution method, I'm not sure that it's the best way to go. For example,
Alan, from the article, and I went and read some more articles on it after that, there were a couple additional things in this. One was they were talking about adding the hydrogen to the natural gas stream, not just for the separation on the far side. They actually tested it with all of our existing appliances that use natural gas. And what they found was they could add up to 20% of the mass could be hydrogen, and that would reduce the impact of methane as far as emitting gases. So they'd be using less methane, there'd be less CO2 coming out the far side. Our kitchens might be a little bit wetter, more humid, but that might be about it. The other thing is this: I'm not sure for some of the uses, that it would need, once it's distilled back out again, whether it has to be compressed. For a vehicle, yes. But imagine that you had a fuel cell in a home that was used for producing electricity for the home. You wouldn't have to compress it. You could just take the gas out and use it for the fuel cell, right? So it's going to be a novel idea.
Right. I could see maybe some places that would be useful.
I think you sent this one to me too, didn't you?
No, I don't think so. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes, I didn't recognize it. Yeah. So, yes, the Sacramento Municipal Utilities District, SMUD, has teamed up with Plug-in America, which is a chapter of the EAA, to make available a helpline for EVs. It's free with any amount of questions, any amount of phone calls for SMUD customers. For those who are not SMUD customers, the first call is free, and then after that, you need to contribute to Plug-in America, which is a good idea anyway, to get further advice.
Yeah.
But this sort of ties back to what Gerry was suggesting for our chapter. I have to think I have a lot of respect for Plug-in America. They do a lot for EVs, and I expect this will be a very effective program.
Yeah, and as you said, it's not just SMUD customers, but what surprised me was they'll answer calls from people out of state as well.
Right, right, yeah.
This one, I think you sent to me, but I'd like to talk to it. I thought this was good. Yeah.
This sort of ties in with the other one. I'm certainly not promoting this, but I'd like to get people's feedback of what they think of having a fuel cell generator, electrical generator out in the remote areas instead of running a power line from a long distance or having solar panels. It is suggested that a truck of compressed hydrogen come out and fill a tank for some fuel cells that will then generate power for some fast chargers. What do people think about that?
Somebody raise a hand. John.
Is it
John.
Is it an internal combustion or a fuel cell?
Fuel cell.
Fuel cell.
Okay.
Yeah, the two companies involved is one is a charging company, the other one's a fuel cell company.
Yeah, I could say something about that. So looking at different discussions in Europe and the United States, my sense is that in Europe, they're more interested in hydrogen for the reason that they want hydrogen to be an energy reserve that we then convert back by fuel cells to electricity. So they have this discussion in the context of people at home having a hydrogen car that is that kind of reserve. So you fill up at the station and then you go home and you become a small power plant for the grid. And I haven't seen that same idea really here developed in the United States that much. I think some people say, could the batteries in electric cars be like a reserve that is called upon to fill in the peak areas in demand? But it seems in Europe, they're really doing this from the perspective of fuel cells and hydrogen.
Well, Japan, after Fukushima, established that as a policy, and they've just recently pretty much dropped it and gone away from that. What you described as what is going on in Europe. But I'm considering what my question is specifically for this use here in remote areas for a fast charger. Basically, the question is it better to use a hydrogen fuel cell or to have solar panels?
I'll just make one quick comment, which was someone said, and you could truck the hydrogen out there, fill it up with hydrogen from a truck. I mean, the thing about it is, you know, to produce, you could have a freestanding system there with the entire package of solar electrolysis of water, producing the hydrogen, compressing it, and having it available. The capacity is another question, but that is a technologically possible thing where you wouldn't need to have a truck coming out there to refuel.
But Woody, I tend to disagree a little bit on that because of the basic energy density. You'd have to have a fairly large solar array if you wanted to collect enough energy over time to be
That's
a
why I
service
said
station. It has
capacity.
to be a pretty big array.
That's right. That's why I said capacity is an issue. So you'd have to have a huge array. There's stuff like that. So yes,
I'll tell you the reason that I
depends how much you're trying to get.
The reason I like this, and I think the trucking thing is a concern, but if the trucks get solved as far as what their impact is, the reason that I like this was for two reasons. Having worked in the field, I recognize the last mile problem is a tremendous problem. And across those highways, going on the long distance, it's going to be even worse. We're going to be talking about multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get the power to where we actually want it to be in order to be able to charge the vehicles up. And here, you could be out in remote areas, and that's where I see this being used, in remote areas. And you could truck out on a regular basis. That's one part. And second is, it creates more jobs. So the truckers continue to have something to do.
Well, let me comment on that. The idea of being in an area where there's no power, I can tell you from experience in Central Asia, you just don't see very many places that don't have overhead power lines. So there's usually power around. There really is.
I would agree with that, Alan. And I think that one of the other big things is that you've got a lot of pent-up demand for truckers to put things into their existing tankers, engineers to work with liquid fuels so that it feels comfortable to them based on what they've done over the last 100 years. And it just, there's that old saying, like, if you're holding a hammer, everything looks like a nail. I think that there's a little bias toward, liquid fuels. And I understand that green hydrogen exists and that, this could be done in a really green way. And there might be some rocky island in Maine that, could use this sort of service versus a huge solar panel array. But I would worry that we would be predisposed toward liquid fuels when they aren't as feasible, just because everyone's so confident about how that exists and how it gets commoditized within the organizations that kind of own that area.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just yeah, I agree.
John?
Yeah, I like this discussion. My concerns about the hydrogen fuel cell thing are several. One is that, is it going to be compressed hydrogen with a supercooled tank? Is it going to be simply compressed hydrogen? Is the tank going to have to let the hydrogen gas off while it's sitting there, like at least in transportation it does, because it's liquefied? I wonder about the full cycle life of the thing. I haven't heard people talk about all the technology that's involved with the fuel cell and how long it lasts and whether the frequency of use is important and how often this would be used. All those questions just seem to be, making me wonder about whether it's worthwhile.
Your comment on that, though, I wish one of my friends who was visiting here last week looking for a house in Sebastopol was here, because Matt had installed all the fuel cells at Xilinx, which was the major power plant. Now, unfortunately, that uses methane in order to fuel it. But those suckers have been there for 10 years now and have virtually no maintenance whatsoever. So I think the life cycle is good. Like I said, I haven't worked in the field. The number of projects I saw that didn't happen, and Alan, yes, power is there. It's the last mile. It's not the fact that there's no electricity nearby. It's the amount of electricity and getting it to that site. It's really expensive. And this is a rollout and do it, and we could get charging stations along the highways really fast.
Well, but then again, if there's no power out there. There's probably no gas station. And now EVs have pretty much the same range as gas stations. So why do we need a charging station out there?
No, there's a difference. Sorry, there's a difference between the amount of electricity required in order to run a pump than there is in order to charge a vehicle. We're talking about a lot of kilowatts going out there. They don't run that. They'll run a 220 line out to a gas station. That's fine. We're talking about higher than 480 and three-phase going out. And we just lost Alan.
You lost me?
Oh, wait, you jumped. There you go.
So I one more comment. I don't want to belabor the issue too much, but has anybody heard about what's happening with the flow battery concept and whether, because with something like that, you can use both solar and a lower energy slow charge method to store up electricity in a large liquid, fluid capacity that then can have a fast discharge rate.
Yeah, but you're still talking about having to get the electricity there. But you comment on that, and then Bruce wanted to say something, and I lost him here, so on the screen.
Also, I think Brad had his hand, he got the official hand sign up, but.
Do you want me to go first, Bruce?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead, Brad, and then.
Okay. I was curious as to whether there are any interest, or if there's any interest, from trucking companies or transportation companies that anyone knows of, because I would think that there would have to be some interest coming from the existing industry, unless all of it was coming from ABB and AFC Energy as kind of the, groundwork.
Anybody?
Well, I guess, but another consideration would be, what if you, addressing Gerry's concern, replace that whole fuel cell compressor, not compressor, but tank system with batteries that could be charged at 220 at the same power that a gas pump would require, but they would be charging at all the time, where because it's in a remote area, it would be seldom that a car would be using the charging aspect of it.
The reason, Alan, that I'm stuck on this is this, and maybe it's my perception. I see gas stations, and when I look at the pumps, they're almost in continuous use. They're not empty for long. They have dead time, but cars keep driving in and filling up and filling up. You get the 220 and a certain number of kilowatts coming down the line. You can't charge the batteries fast enough to keep up with the outflow in an area where you're going to have that kind of traffic. That's why I thought this was a good solution. You bring the energy there in a batch.
I'm not sure if this fully counters it, but when you charge your large battery at home, you don't stop on the freeway at the same rate. So say we get to 50% EVs in short order, does everyone have to leave their homes and go charge?
Well, I wasn't thinking about this around here. I'm thinking about on Highway 80 and Highway 70 and 90 going across the country. Highway 5.
Tesla's figured that out.
I think that this is the use of hydrogen might become a lot more popular in the future because there's a lot of scientific work going on right now around creating green hydrogen from a couple of different sources. One of them is directly through molecular biology. They're going to create synthetic hydrogen from CO and other things from CO2 out of the atmosphere and so on. I'm kind of a futurist about these ideas. I have a feeling that a lot of the things that we're talking about right now are going to have a totally different perspective in 5 years because of the revolution in molecular biology, and especially the great work that's being done for artificial photosynthesis, which is going to be able to take CO2 directly out of the air by using enzymes and create fuels. So, I think we have to take all of this with a grain of salt, and I think that hydrogen might have a real future.
Bruce? Bruce had an answer.
Yes, I have a related question, and it's very specific to my area. I want to know if there's like a sort of mid-range hydrogen processing plant whereby, let's say, 50 to 100, 400 watt panels would be able to convert the hydrogen and bottle it in 220 cubic foot cylinders. And I'm using that as sort of an accepted standard that would have less difficulty getting permitting for a residential area. And my idea, or what I would like to be able to do, is to use it for energy storage of surplus solar production rather than buying the batteries. In our county, which is about 4 major islands and 90 others, some with their own self-generating plants, but all of the propane that provides propane services for people that expect to have their, Wolf cooktops with propane burners, that sort of thing, all of that has to be shipped in on separate barge ferries. Our electricity all comes from the mainland. We don't have enough to self-generate, but we could under the right circumstances. And there's also an initiative to, it's already underway. There's ferries being built that are basically hybrid ferries. So I'm hoping there might be some way that there could be a home conversion system that would store cylinders of gas. I don't have an idea how long that would take. Up here, it would be really slow during the winter, but very fast in the summertime. Basically having these cylinders trucked down to an existing propane depot and utilized both for export to other islands or other homes that need hydrogen to convert to electricity, sort of storage for homes, and also for the ferry system terminal. So I guess the short answer, I'm wondering if there is sort of a medium price, sort of like maybe not quite as big as Stone Edge Farms production facility, but something that would allow that hydrogen produced from excess solar to be captured in small enough quantities that it wouldn't be a major kerfluffle to try to get it regulated. And then with the earthquake, we potentially lose our giant extension cords to the mainland, and we could be out of luck for 6-8 months. Does anything exist like this is the question. A small, medium-sized.
You know what? That's a good topic for somebody to research and do a presentation on.
Yeah, presentation on hydrogen. The Stanford series has touched on that because there is, as Andy said, there's a lot of research being done on hydrogen beyond electrolysis, right? And with different techniques. Bill, did you want to say something? Or were you
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess Ellen's last point is close to what I'm coming from, which is lack of knowledge about all of a sudden hydrogen is available for transportation. When I heard the talk about hydrogen cars years ago, I always thought very dangerous, explosive, blah, blah, blah. So I guess I've fallen behind on understanding how far this is advanced. So what Ellen said about hydrogen making a dent in any kind of usage as a fuel, I'm in the dark.
One of the things that in previous meetings, I listed a number of possible topics. One Tor had recommended we cover, which was what are the different charging networks and fueling networks that are being established. And one of the ones that I ran across is that there's a hydrogen fueling network being built across the United States on the major highways for hydrogen fueled semis. And so that's under construction right now. And the funding is already there for that. It's actually done with private funding. It's not public money.
Okay, I haven't heard about explosions or anything yet, so.
Well, gasoline explodes a little bit better than hydrogen as far as I know.
Okay, I'm just not familiar. But.
Yeah, there's I mean there's a lot on this. There's hydrogen. There are a lot of characteristics of hydrogen that make it actually much safer than fuels like gasoline or diesel or others. And I mean this is a long-standing, we call it the hydrogen, the hydrogen myth, born out of Hindenburg perhaps, or a link to hydrogen bombs and whatnot, just that people think this way. And yes, it's a fuel, so yes, it has it combusts and all that. So any fuel with containing energy, it needs to be handled carefully. It is used in industry for decades, and it's managed safely and can be managed safely for vehicle fueling or stationary energy use.
And you mentioned the Hindenburg, and I'm sure everybody knows the Hindenburg did not. It wasn't the hydrogen that burned, it was the fabric that burned. So, all right, I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Thank you.
Okay? Let me get in the right context. Wait a second. There we go. Sorry, there we go.
No, there.
Did somebody send this one to me?
Yeah, I did. I did. So just Neuro down in Santa Clara County, I believe, or San Mateo County, has received approval for their autonomous delivery vehicles. The first ones will actually be Priuses, but apparently these pods, or whatever you want to call them, are going to be shortly, available soon. And they're limited to streets where the speed limit is 35 miles an hour or less, but they will have a limit of 25 miles an hour. But really, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out.
In this first trial, though, they're going to have drivers sitting in there. I was just wondering, how did the packages get from the vehicle into the building?
I guess you have to be there.
You have to be there. They probably have a robot, They're all over the place, these robots that carry packages. So this was an interesting one. Did I find this one? Somebody else sent this one to me.
I sent that as well. Yeah. It's just, we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but basically the German dealers that handle both EVs and gas cars are doing the same thing that Americans did. They just, when they did a test group, I think there were 50, 50 total potential buyers of EVs. They split them into two groups, 25 were not certain whether they wanted to go one with an EV or not, and some minute percentage of the dealers suggested the EV, and even worse, they had wrong answers to the questions. Anyway, like I say, we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But
it was kind of the part for me that was interesting in this. There were two things out of it. One was Volkswagen really invested big in this. But the thing that they didn't do, they didn't change their dealer network. And so the dealers actually make more on the fossil fuel vehicles than they do the EVs. And so why would the guy want to sell something he makes less money on?
Right.
But there was one dealer who 47% of his sales were electric.
Yeah.
So he had to do it because he wanted to do it.
Are they doing a lot of online ordering? I thought in the US you would just order your VW online.
Oh, is that right?
Thought so, and it was just curious to me, like, I guess what we're still talking about is that no one who goes in to shop for a gas car will ever get switched to an EV by a salesperson, which is kind of a shame.
Well, and it was the flip side. When we tried to buy our first EV, we spent 2 hours with the sales guy trying to convince us that was a stupid thing to do. And we weren't interested in buying anything other than an EV.
But does anybody have experience with local dealerships here? How they know about EVs, or are they available on the lot to drive around, or how is it locally?
Well, I can give you the experience that I've had, and others can do it. The Nissan dealer here in Santa Rosa has a specialist who's the EV specialist. He's fairly well informed, but not 100%, because I asked him a few questions that I knew the answers to that he didn't know the answers to. But they do help you with the sales process. And there's plenty of EVs for you to test drive. You guys have gotten the GM. What's the experience there? Anybody?
McConnell's pretty good. You know, they'll sell you a Volt or a Bolt up in Healdsburg. They're not that familiar with them. And I think, you know, most of them are respectful if you come in and say, I'm looking for an EV.
I know that before the Bolt was really popular, and Andy, you can answer the question best, but here in Santa Rosa, I went to go test drive the Bolt when it first came out. I had to spend time talking to the dealer to explain to him how he's supposed to hook up the charge station, because they had the Bolts there, but he didn't know how to plug it in. He didn't know how to wire up the charge station. And since I was doing that at the time, it was not a big deal. Andy, you want to talk about your experience?
Well, I think when I bought the Volt and the Bolt from Platinum Chevrolet, they had people on staff that were pretty knowledgeable about the features of the cars, and some of them were specialists. But at that point, you know, they wanted to sell it to me because I was an early adopter, and they were getting a premium price for the things too. So they weren't reticent around their price point. In general, though, I would say that the really important questions around charging and all that, they weren't very familiar with. You know, the kinds of things that we get in this club, the information we've gotten from Alan and others over the years, is a lot more useful than what they can offer.
Yeah, the first Nissan that I bought was interesting because the guy who sold it to me, and this is down in Sunnyvale, so it's not up here, but the dealer did something interesting. The guy wasn't on commission. He was on salary. So they took one person, brought him in and said, okay, learn all about the vehicle. You're selling the vehicles. And he was on salary, not on commission. And the only thing he sold was EVs.
Yeah, so I wonder whether they are knowledgeable about the financial parts, the incentives, because my impression is that incentives at point of sale are most effective, rather than like next year when you get your taxes and you get a rebate or something like that.
The Nissan dealer here in Santa Rosa knew all about all of the opportunities and handed me the paperwork.
Yeah, you need to have somebody who is knowledgeable about the financial aspects. And then also I wonder how commissions of the salesperson are affected by the incentives.
Yeah, that I don't know. Anybody else?
I was just going to, oh, sorry.
Well, I'll just say that I don't think Platinum is very knowledgeable. Even if you go in the Nissan dealership, if you don't get the specialist, you will still get guys talking you out of an EV in Santa Rosa at Jim Bone. So no, the whole sales thing is still an obstacle.
Yeah, maybe my problem, David, was when I went to get this EV, I drove in an EV and I said, I want another one. So they sent me the right guy. Too bad Ellen's not there, because Ellen probably has the experience too to talk about. But
I was just going to add that I purchased a 2018 Bolt 8 EV from Platinum, and I sort of agree it was a new thing. They were trying to help early adopters along. The other thing was the Sonoma Clean Power incentive on top of the federal and state incentives. It was basically a no-brainer. And the issue when I got there is they didn't have any left to sell, so I had to wait for the next lot to come in, and I brought that one up. And if you're ever interested in a white stickered California vehicle, they're all up here after they come off lease. Good deals.
Okay, next slide here. Caleb sent this one in. And since both he and I worked in the bus field, this is Van Hool, and they're one of the larger bus companies. And they were showing videos of their new bus And they had two elements in it. One was how quiet it was compared to their diesel buses. And then they had a race, 0 to 60, between the diesel and the electric. And they want to show how their electric is a better machine. So they're actively out trying to sell them. And there's just basically the stats. They're using the Proterra battery packs and Siemens motors. But there was no indication what the price would be. These things usually sell for any place from $150,000 to, depending on how good they are, to $250,000. And the EVs were coming in at a cost closer to $500,000. That's why in California there's a $250,000 incentive when you get a full-size bus that you can file for. Pickups. I've had multiple contractors ask me about pickups. I need a pick. Can I get an EV pickup? And so here's the 2021, 2022 schedule of pickups. It's going to be a big period. Now, if you look at the prices on these, some say question. The Ford's over $100,000. The Rivian, which is only an electric company, is $67,000 to $75,000. And it looks pretty good. GM is someplace between affordable and not affordable on the Hummer. But the Lordstown Endurance out of Ohio, look at that price. So I don't know what these things are all going to look like. And Fisker, Nissan, and I don't know, Hercules, I've all announced that they're going to have pickups shortly. They're in the middle of development. Tesla, Alan?
Yeah, I saw this article that in Korea, I assume South Korea, they are making this available the start of this year to those customers over there. There's no official announcement as to when they'll be available here. Sorry, they're the Tesla CCS charging adapter. So and you'll see there that it's high power. So it's got the upper part of the charger. So it's a supercharger capacity type adapter. So that would be useful, again, addressing availability of charging.
I wouldn't have understood why it was rolling out this way, except Zeno got me plugged into this course at Delft University in the Netherlands. And the technology course has a segment on here's the charging standards throughout the world. And even though things look the same, they aren't the same. So there's communications and signals and power. I mean, this is 3-phase, whereas ours would all be split phase.
That doesn't look like 3-phase to me, but
it'd be DC.
Yeah, but 3-phase. It says 3-phase CCS. I don't get that. That looks like a standard CCS with
okay, no. See, that's referring to Europe.
Oh, okay.
Europe has 3-phase charging.
That may be the Korean version
here.
Yeah, and in your experience, Alan, would an adapter like that put excessive stress on the Tesla port?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, without a dongle, it looks like it's a lot of mass and a lot of force on a little teeny plug.
Yeah, add a little bit of a moment arm, but that's I feel pretty confident that it would take it okay.
Okay, we got into the airplanes. I keep getting things from the Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association on EVs. And it's just, I'll go through these really fast because it's not that fascinating, but there is so much activity in the EV aircraft area. This one's a twin, and they're now running routes in Hawaii. One's an engine and one is a motor. And so they're cutting down on their impact. And when you're up flying a cruise, you can idle the engine and just use the motor because it's going to work better. So they're working on a 19-passenger vehicle. In this one, it's a shakeout where Joby Aviation's integrating now with Uber aviation applications. They're funded by, these guys aren't funded by small companies. You're getting funded by places like Toyota. That surprised me. And the numbers of dollars are a reasonable number of dollars for the development they're doing. This one, is this the one that announced it? Oh, here, they're going to enter service by 2023. Look at that device. Have you seen one of these flying around the neighborhood? They're talking about actual service by 2023. So the field's going to move fairly quickly. This one is a consortium in Europe, and this one's a fuel cell. A number of the aviation vehicles are fuel cell because they have solved the energy density problem with fuel cells, right? Because you're packing the hydrogen in there. The reason for this, I picked this one. They have 3 different models. The others look somewhat more conventional. This is not conventional. And the reason for this one, this is actually from Pipistrel, where there was a challenge for the highest efficiency aircraft possible. And turned out this was the highest efficiency aircraft. It could fly 100 nautical miles on a half a gallon of gasoline. So since energy density is one of the issues with EVs, they selected this particular body to do the demonstration on this.
Gerry, I actually have a little experience with this. This was,
good.
This was built by Pipistrel to compete in the NASA Green Flight Challenge right here at Sonoma County. And yes, they did win the challenge, but a German group out of the University of Stuttgart was a very close second behind them in a very conventional looking plane. But yeah, this was purpose built for that NASA Green Flight Challenge.
Yeah. In the same article that I read this one in, they show really conventional looking planes. These guys are working on multiple aircraft, up to 40 seats, and all using electric technology. Now, in most cases, it'll be fuel cells. And this one here is a California funded one. This is actually a Piper that's been repowered. But these guys are working on a 20-seat commuter, 500-mile range, which they hope to be having commercial service by 2023. And then they're looking at a 1,000-mile range version as well. This one, I'm sorry that Caleb's not here because he could probably speak better to this one too. I've been tracking this. This is a company that's come up with an electric motor, and it's designed specifically for aircraft. And I couldn't figure out why, but when I started looking at the RPM, I started guessing why they took the time to do this. It was a higher efficiency, higher power motor for aircraft. And look at the RPM. John, what's the RPM on most of the electric motors used in cars? Do you know what it is?
Well, like 10 or 13 in Leaf and Tesla, and then 8 for some of the others.
Right. So these guys now have a lower RPM motor that they focused on because propellers don't want to go at 10,000 RPM. And we do have aircraft that have gear ratios, but not most aircrafts don't. They're usually direct drive. All right, input from the peanut gallery. You guys have more to say than you said already?
I have something.
Yeah.
For the Tesla people or folks who are interested in them, Tesla now has the standard range Model Y available to order, as well as 7 seats.
At a pretty reasonable price too, huh, Cecilia?
Yeah, it's like starts at 42,000,
right?
I believe.
Yeah.
Bruce?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I've dug out some of the photos I took of the original meetup with the Friday Harbor High School folks about 3 years ago, and I'm basically waiting to connect with the new instructor. There's so many things going on here with COVID and moving that apologies for the last minute bail on that. But also I turned up the breakthrough moment at Thunderstruck Motors when Brian and John hacked the Leaf motor, and I've cut it down to about 18 minutes. Right now it's a full 1080p, I think, but I could play just 30 seconds of it just to see how it comes through if I share my screen or if you can view my screen. You want to try that?
Well, I tell you what we could do is this: rather than do the experiment here, why don't we schedule it for either the next meeting or whatever, and you and I can test offline, so we don't have to test here with everybody else.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay with me.
Because we're going to show a video now, another video that John sent.
Oh, okay. Well, that's, and I don't have John's photo release. You know, he probably,
okay, yeah, you'll have to get that.
Right?
Make sure you get a wet signature. Yeah, David.
Yeah, I went ahead and went to Nissan's website and plugged in what they offer on the national website, and a 40 kilowatt hour battery in a Leaf. They quote at a lease monthly of $704 a month. So I did the inquiry, and I just got a call from the salesman down here at Jim Bone, and he said,
Brett, right?
No, I got it from Spencer, who's the
Okay.
number 2 Leaf guy.
Okay, good.
And he said that Jim Bone and Greg White, the sales manager, have been clearing out the 2020 the non-pluses, which would be the 40 kilowatt hour, and so that price of $999 down and $99 a month is VIN specific, but he still has some available. So
okay, good.
That is available in Santa Rosa. $999 off the lot and $99 a month on a 3-year lease on a 2020 Leaf 40 kilowatt hour.
Anybody else? All right. So what I'm going to cover here is a video that John sent me the link. I think I watched most of the 90 minutes, but I've got it down to 28 minutes. And part of this goes back to the battery presentation that I gave over a year ago. And I got interested, and this is Lowell's fault. Lowell said, wouldn't somebody give a presentation on batteries and vehicles? And I don't understand how all this works. And I still have, I got notes sitting up here on my desk to tell me which is the anode and which is the cathode. Because, I can't follow those things. So that was an education for me. And this diagram was part of what I picked up was how do we analyze the various trade-offs between one kind of battery and another kind of battery? So it's a balancing act. And one of the things that you're going to find in most of the talks is lithium is the solution because of where it is in the periodic table chart, because it wants to give up its electrons. But lithium has lots of problems. So I made a little table here because I always thought it was these dendrites that build up and you get a short, and that's why lithium is an issue. Well, it turns out there's a whole bunch of other problems too. The dendrites are one, but there's material loss. So the part that I didn't pick up, and we'll see part of this in the video, and I got this from the Stanford talks as well, was when the lithium leaves and goes over to the cathode, it has to find a place to sit. So the lithium, when it goes to the cathode, I'm sorry, it goes to the anode rather. See, I knew you'd get backwards again. It goes to the anode. It doesn't actually combine with anything. The only thing it combines with is an electron, and it becomes an atom again. But it needs a place to wait. And so that's the reason for the carbon. The carbon makes a matrix, kind of parking spaces for the lithium to sit. And so now a number of problems occur. I've got to find a place to sit. Oh, wait, there's guys behind me. I got to move through the carbon to get to the other side because they're going to get on top of me. Oh, there's no more parking spaces. Let's all pile up on the one side. And then eventually some of those ions or some of those atoms get inside the carbon, but they can't find their way back out again because it's a hell of a maze to get out. And so they put a whole bunch more lithium in the battery to start with, so that when it charges the first few times, the atoms that get lost in the carbon don't really reduce what we think the capacity would be. And over time, more and more get lost, and that's why the battery loses its effectiveness over time. It also can't charge as fast because it takes time to go through that matrix. So a lot of the work that you find in the batteries today is, how can I change the matrix? Oh, you know, if we do it with silicon, it can get through faster than it can with carbon. But, you know, as it gets into silicon, it tends to push it out and it makes it bigger. And so there's a new problem that occurs. And then it turns out there's some chemical side effects as well that have to do with chemistry between the carbon and what's on the cathode side and the electrolytes. And so what's turning out to be the case now is that's the reason for solid state. In the case of solid state, many of these issues they've been trying to sidetrack. Some, as Sonia would have said, oh, you're thinking the same way. They're changing the matrix. They're putting the solid electrolyte that the ion can get through, but the electrons can't get through. And they make it so that a lot of the bad stuff is gone. Now, some things they found out later on didn't work exactly right. Like if you leave the battery sitting for a long time, it discharges anyway, even though it has no path for the electrons because of a chemical reaction. So what's happened now, after 10 years worth of research and 10 years worth of performance measurements, that's what was the impressive part, and independent tests by prospective customers, QuantumScape made an announcement and they were ready to scale up for production by 2025. Alan, I apologize. I'm going to show some more of this. So the picture changes at this point. The picture looks like this. They've actually got it so that they have a battery that they've now demonstrated that decreases cost, increases specific energy, increases specific power, is totally safe, has high performance, and has a long lifespan. It is the nirvana of batteries, if it turns out to be true. And somebody asked me, is that the case? Here's the company trading on the stock market. They went public like 3 or 4 months ago, not a long time ago. The yellow mark here is when this video was posted. The stock went from where it started at about $13 a share as a startup 3 months ago, just saying we're going to be there, to people getting an idea that they actually had something which was probably production worthy. Then the CEO reviews this with investors. And within a week, the stock's at $135 a share. Let me just warn you, today it's at $56 a share. Thursday, it was at $49 a share. So reality sunk back in again. So nobody knows where the stock should be. They will not have production material for 5 years. But this has to do with their technology. And in the meantime, others may come up with other technologies as good. But I thought I'd share the video. Let me change my share.
Can I say something before?
Sure.
So it struck me that one of the criteria that they evaluate this solid state on, and that ion, lithium-ion are based on, is lacking two criteria. One is the environmental impact of the production of this battery, right? The mining that is needed, and also the worldwide security issues, because lithium can only be harvested in very few places in the world. So it still would make us dependent, or other countries that don't have these kind of resources, dependent on an international network in which that material is mined. And so I will put in this chat, there is a sodium-ion battery development that tries to develop a battery that is based on cheaper and more locally available materials.
Okay, and so you know, I spent 5 years with the sodium batteries and the energy density on them, and the amount of work, that is the amount of material which is required. They are, by the way, 100% recyclable, the sodium batteries. And there's a number of chemistries that are there that do that. But they have to be melted, and you have to run at 475 degrees Fahrenheit in order for it to work. And there's a whole list of things, and they have a limited life. So there's a number of problems. we can talk about the lithium, and we should have a presentation on lithium and recyclability of it over time. There's articles, and I don't think I included it here, but I can share some of those on where the other sources for lithium. Lithium is the 5th most common element on the planet. Right. So there's other ways to get it besides the mining. The mining is the simplest way.
And there are large deposits right here in the U.S.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm about to share this. Let's see if I get this right. I have to get to the other window. Did I share the right thing? Hang on a second. Yeah, I think I did. Let me just make sure I shared the right thing. Just a second. Sorry. Let's go back to share again. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay. Oops. There we go.
The climate crisis is disrupting our way of life.
Everybody have sound?
And transportation is producing a quarter of the world's climate-changing emissions. We need more electric vehicles on the road as quickly as possible. Today's EVs aren't appealing enough to many drivers, and a big reason for that is their lithium-ion batteries don't work like we want them to. Solid-state batteries with a lithium-metal anode can solve the problems with lithium-ion batteries. They can provide longer driving range, faster charging, longer life, safer operations, and lower costs. Battery scientists know this and have been working on solid-state designs for decades, but it's hard to make solid-state batteries work. To be useful in EVs, solid-state batteries need 4 key characteristics. They need high current density, which lets them charge quickly. Today's solid-state designs only work at low current densities, making them basically useless in commercial applications. They can't have too much lithium built in. Excess lithium results in less energy being stored. They need to last. Some solid-state designs can fail after charging and discharging just a few hundred times. To be commercially useful, these batteries need to last through hundreds of thousands of miles of driving. And they need to work at low temperatures. Some designs only work at high temperatures, meaning they need big, expensive heaters attached to them, making them impractical for EVs. The best battery scientists and some of the largest automakers and consumer tech companies in the world have tested our batteries in their own labs and seen what they can do. I'm proud to release the results of our tests to the public for the very first time. Our batteries are the next step in solid-state technology that will power the next generation of electric vehicles. I can't wait to tell the world more.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Solid-State Battery Showcase. I'm excited for the first time to unveil performance data on QuantumScape solid-state battery technology, which will demonstrate that we've addressed some of the fundamental issues holding back widespread adoption of solid-state batteries. The company has been around for about 10 years. We've raised about $1.5 billion to date. We've spent about $300 million of it to get to where we are today. The battery development is not cheap. We have about 250 employees, hundreds of patents and trade secrets that have been developed over the last 10 years. And finally, a word about our partnership with VW. So VW, of course, is the world's largest car company by shipments. 11 million vehicles shipped last year. They own a number of iconic brands like Porsche and Audi and VW. The partnership with VW dates back to 2012. They have invested a total of over $300 million into QuantumScape over the years. And in addition, we have announced a joint venture to manufacture these batteries at scale for use in VW's platforms. VW has, at many times in the past, publicly mentioned that their target is to get these batteries on the roads by 2025. We're excited about partnering with VW to bring this technology to the mainstream market. So a quick summary of the different options available to someone trying to improve battery performance. This slide looks at a dozen different next generation cathode materials and 3 different anode materials. The cathode materials are on the x-axis and the anode materials are shown on these 3 lines or curves on the slide. And the main takeaway from this slide is that it doesn't really matter which next generation cathode material you use. If you don't use lithium metal as the anode, then you can't get much above 300 or the low 300s in terms of watt hours per kilogram. So the key requirement is lithium metal anode. People have known this in the industry, obviously, for 45 plus years, since the mid 70s. But people have also known that lithium metal is not stable with conventional liquid electrolytes. There's the dual problems of impedance growth from side reactions that happen with lithium, between lithium and the liquid. And there's the fundamental issue of dendrite growth and formation. Dendrites, as I'll talk more about later, are needle-like crystals of metallic lithium that can penetrate through the separator, keeping the anode and cathode apart, thereby short-circuiting the cell and causing a fire. That's obviously a catastrophic failure, and the only way to address that is to switch to a solid-state separator, which can prevent lithium metal dendrites from forming. So the industry has known all this since the mid-70s, but that's where the industry's been stuck, because it's turned out to be very, very difficult to make a solid-state separator that meets the requirements of conductivity while being able to prevent lithium metal dendrites from forming. So if you could, in fact, make a solid-state separator that was as conductive as a liquid and yet was able to prevent lithium metal dendrites from forming, then you could take the conventional battery architecture shown here on the left, which consists of 3 layers, a cathode layer at the bottom, an anode layer consisting of carbon particles or carbon silicon particles on the top, and a porous polymer separator in the middle, and the whole cell is flooded with that liquid electrolyte that I mentioned, which is the medium through which lithium ions are transported. And all the battery does is, when you charge it up, lithium ions are forced to move from the cathode through the electrolyte into the anode. When you discharge it, the ions move back down, and you can extract work back out of the battery. And if you had a solid-state separator, you could replace this porous polymer separator, as shown in the left schematic, with the ceramic separator, as shown in the middle schematic here, and completely do away with this graphite, carbon, or silicon anode. And you are left essentially with a 2-layer battery, which only has a cathode and a separator as manufactured. The anode is formed in situ on the first charge. When you first charge it up, lithium ions flow out of the cathode through the separator and deposit themselves on the separator, creating a layer of pure metallic lithium, which is the anode. When you discharge the cell, it goes back to initial state, and you can see that it cycles back and forth between these 2 states. So just looking at this slide, you can see that the solid-state lithium metal anode case is much more energy dense than the conventional lithium-ion battery, because it doesn't have all the space and mass and volume required for the carbon or carbon silicon anode. That's the core reason for the advantage that solid-state batteries provide over lithium-ion. And if you do the math, it turns out that you can end up with on the order of 1,000 watt hours per liter with this solid-state architecture, which compares with energy density of around in the 700s in terms of watt hours per liter for conventional lithium-ion technologies. This is a substantial step up in energy density. The real additional win here is that in addition to energy density, you also, in one fell swoop, solve the fast charge problem, because it turns out that the main limitation to fast charge is the diffusion rate of lithium through those carbon particles in the anode. And if you take away the carbon particles, you take away that diffusion bottleneck. And now you can charge the battery as fast as the cathode can deliver lithium ions to you. It turns out you can now get a 15-minute charge, which you cannot do with conventional batteries. You also solve or address the cycle life issue because it turns out that the cycle life is partly limited in conventional batteries by a side reaction that occurs between that liquid and the carbon particle. And by limiting the carbon particle, you eliminate that side reaction and therefore get better life performance. You improve the safety of the cell because the porous polymer separator is organic and is a fuel. It can melt at less than 200 degrees and then actually is a fuel that can burn. The ceramic solid state separator is already oxidized, so it's non-flammable, non-combustible, and it's stable to north of 1,000 degrees, which means that it actually can act as a fire break in the event of an adverse development. And finally, because you've eliminated both the carbon material as well as the manufacturing process to deposit that carbon electrode, the cell actually ends up being lower cost. So again, in one fell swoop, you solve all 5 of the problems that have been holding back widespread adoption of EVs. Now, you could look at this and say, this is great. Why can't I go out and buy a solid-state battery today? And the answer is, it's been very hard to make this ceramic solid-state separator. In particular, there's 4 key requirements it has to meet. It has to be as conductive as a liquid electrolyte. It has to be it has to have very low resistance at the interfaces between the layers. It has to be natively stable to lithium metal, which is hard because lithium is very reactive, and it needs to prevent the formation of lithium metal dendrites. And it turns out on that last particular metric, none of the other materials that have been tried over the last 45 years have been successful. So people have looked at liquids and polymers and sulfides and oxides, and every single one of those approaches has turned out to be deficient on the dendrite resistant property when you drive current density to practical levels. So to illustrate some of these points, here's a short video that will discuss why it's been so challenging to develop solid-state batteries.
Why has it been so challenging to develop solid-state batteries? Solid-state batteries with a lithium-metal anode have the potential to address the fundamental trade-offs associated with lithium-ion batteries. They are designed to enable longer driving range, faster charging times, longer life, safer operations, and lower costs. Battery scientists know this and have been working on solid-state designs for decades, but it has proven to be very hard to make solid-state batteries work until now. There are 4 major challenges of making an effective solid-state lithium-metal battery for electric vehicles. 1. The battery needs to be able to charge rapidly. Perhaps the most important challenge for a solid-state battery is the ability to withstand the rates of power that are required for fast charging. As the battery charges, the solid-state separator is stressed by the high current passing through. If the separator can't handle the current density, lithium metal dendrites will puncture through, short-circuiting the cell. QuantumScape batteries have a ceramic separator that has been shown to withstand the current density required for a 15-minute fast charge. 2. The battery needs to last the life of the vehicle. Many solid-state batteries fail after only a couple of hundred cycles. QuantumScape cells have been tested to show cycle life exceeding the automotive requirement of 800 cycles, which would allow for hundreds of thousands of miles of driving for a long-range BEV. 3. The battery needs to operate across the entire automotive temperature range. Many solid-state designs require the battery to be kept at elevated temperatures in order to operate. This increases the complexity and cost of the battery pack and vehicle. The QuantumScape solid-state lithium-metal battery operates across the entire automotive temperature range, simplifying the design of the pack. 4. The battery must minimize how much excess lithium it has on the anode. Many solid-state designs require a layer of excess lithium between the separator and the anode electrical contact to make it easier to deposit lithium on the anode and prevent dendrites from forming. However, that excess lithium layer has two negative effects. Loss of energy density, since that excess lithium doesn't store energy but takes up space, and increased cost due to the need to handle lithium metal directly in the manufacturing process. Since QuantumScape cells are manufactured without an anode, the cells have zero excess lithium, maximizing energy density and simplifying the manufacturing process. By successfully testing cells that overcome these challenges, QuantumScape has shown that solid-state batteries can enable the next generation of electric vehicles. QuantumScape. The future is solid.
Okay, so the quick summary is if you have a material that doesn't have the fundamental entitlement to serve as a solid-state separator, you can still make batteries out of that material, but they only work under severely compromised test conditions. And the main compromises that people use are either very low current densities, which ends up not being useful for real applications like driving a car, or the cycle life ends up being very short, or the cells can only work at an elevated temperature, or they require excess lithium, which lowers the energy density of the cell. These are the problems that QuantumScape has addressed. So we have made a material, which is a solid-state separator. It's a ceramic material. It's shown in this image here on the left. As you can see, unlike traditional ceramics, this material is actually quite flexible. And we then take this material and make it into a single-layer pouch cell, as shown on the right. This cell has one cathode in it, one solid-state separator layer, and one in-situ formed lithium metal anode, and encapsulates all of the chemistry of the system in that pouch cell. And because all the chemistry is encapsulated in this single layer cell, you can test all of the parameters that matter, from the energy density of the cell to the power density to the cycle life, the temperature performance, and with that, really validate the core technology. The separator itself is about the dimensions of a single playing card, but thinner than a human hair. The production cell that we will ship will take many dozens of these single layer building block cells and assemble them into a cell about the size of a deck of cards. So with that as background, let me now move into the really most important part of this presentation, which is the performance data that we've never before shared with the world. We'll start with power density, which has been one of the key limitations of traditional solid-state batteries. So what you see here is the charging profile of different battery technologies. The gray curve at the bottom is today's fast charge capability of conventional lithium-ion batteries used in EVs. And you can see that they can charge to 100% in about an hour or 80% in about 40 minutes. Note that you can start charging these batteries at a relatively high rate of charge, but as the state of charge increases, you have to slow down that rate of charge in order to prevent dendrites from forming. With the QuantumScape technology, the solid-state separator already prevents dendrites. So there's no reason to slow down the rate of charge. You can start charging it at a really high rate and continue charging it at that really high rate until it gets all the way up to 80% in less than 15 minutes. This is not only better than any of the solid-state technology, but it's better than you can achieve with conventional lithium-ion batteries, which always have to manage this potential dendriting issue at high rates of charge. Here's an even more exciting chart that the battery experts in the audience will be blown away by. This is a test that tries to look at how much current density the separator can handle without dendriting. And what you see is on the axis on the left, that's the current density. And by way of comparison, conventional solid-state efforts under these conditions really can't get much above a few, single-digit milliamps per centimeter squared before they fail. So they will fail at current densities around this level here. To do a fast charge, you have to be up on the order of 15 to 16 milliamps per centimeter squared. And you can see our cell, our material can withstand that with no failures. We then took the current density higher and higher to see how high we could get without seeing failures. And in this case, we were able to get to over 100 milliamps per centimeter squared of current density, which corresponds to a 2-minute charge or a 25 C rate without a failure. This is a really remarkable result. It blows away any previous demonstration in the world of solid-state separators. This was done at a lithium symmetric cell, which is a material level test at 45 degrees Celsius. And you see here that there's a lot of headroom between what the application requirement is for fast charge and the capability of this material. You can put all of those things together and test these single layer cells on the most aggressive type of driving that you can put a battery through, and that is a track cycle. So in this case, this is one of our OEMs has a racetrack on which they test their cars. The drive cycle for that racetrack is essentially oscillating between one extreme or the other. So you're either discharging the battery at full power, or you're recharging the battery when you brake around the turns at full regeneration power. And the battery just swings back and forth between two extremes, which again is the most stressful driving condition for a battery, because batteries hate to be driven this aggressively. And then in between those discharges, we recharge this battery in 15 minutes. So a really fast recharge. So the way this test works is you drive around the track 9 times, and then you recharge it in 15 minutes. Just to be clear, this test was run on our single layer pouch cells, so we didn't actually put these cells into real cars. Well, we don't have production cells yet, but we are able in this single layer pouch cell to stress it using the same current densities that the cell would experience in a vehicle driving around the track. Now, what you see with this aggressive test is that the cell goes well over 1,000 laps, which corresponds to more than 100 cycles of charge, discharge at these aggressive conditions with minimal degradation of capacity. By contrast, today's best lithium-ion cells start degrading within a few tens of cycles. So again, this result is really remarkable. Not only is it better than any previous solid-state result, but it actually blows away even today's best lithium-ion technologies. So a super exciting result that demonstrates the robustness of the QuantumScape solid-state technology. And then to assess cycle life, we run our cells under real-world conditions, which represents room close to room temperature, so 30 degrees Celsius, 1 C charge and discharge, which is 1 hour charge, 1 hour discharge. Also an aggressive driving condition. Typically, battery cycle life testing is done at slower rates than this, C/3 rates, so 3 hour charge and discharge. There is 0 excess lithium in these cells. These are thick cathodes, over 3 milliamps per centimeter squared, and this is the commercial area of the cell. So these are all real-world conditions. In fact, they're aggressive real-world conditions because of the charge rates and discharge rates. They are not compromised test conditions. And you see the battery lasts over 800 cycles with well over 80% of capacity retained. The spec for commercial deployment of these batteries is in fact 80%, 800 cycles. So this is a really big milestone. No other battery, no other solid-state battery that we are aware of can, under these conditions, cycle anywhere near this well. And in addition, this is not just one hero cell. This is a whole batch of cells that we made, and as you can see, the batch cycles very reliably. So this is another challenge that solid-state battery companies have, is that you can make one hero cell sometimes that can cycle without shorting, but it's very, very hard to make high reliability batches of cells. and that's what we're showing here. So this really demonstrates that that this technology is in fact ready for commercial deployment as soon as we can scale up production and make multi-layer versions of these cells. So super exciting result. Another limitation that solid-state batteries sometimes have is they only operate at elevated temperatures. To demonstrate that we don't have that limitation, we have taken our material and tested it all the way down to -30 degrees, and you still get substantial capacity out of the cell, even at -30. By contrast, lithium-ion technologies would have less capacity than we have even at -25 degrees. And finally, we actually here on the temperature side, we do cycle these cells at -10 degrees. And again, these are commercial area cells with fully loaded cathodes and lithium-free. And you can see these cells cycle very well with minimal degradation. This is a new batch of cells we put out recently. So it's achieved about 100 cycles. But as you can see, cycling is going really well. These cells are still on test with very, very good and reliable performance. So low temperature performance is not a concern with this particular material system that we have. And finally, to address the safety issue, this is a test called a DSC test, which stands for differential scanning calorimetry. And really all it is you take a lithium metal, put it in direct contact with either a liquid electrolyte or in our case, a solid state separator, and heat up the pair of materials. And what you see is with the liquid plus lithium scenario, when you get to lithium melting temperatures of around 180 degrees Celsius, you see a massive exothermic reaction, which corresponds to a fire. And in the case of solid state separator with lithium, even at lithium melting temperature, you see no exotherm. In fact, you see a small endotherm, which represents lithium essentially absorbing energy in order to melt, and no reaction. So this demonstrates the material is in fact inherently stable even to molten lithium, which is a very encouraging result. We are excited about where we are. We are on a mission to go from first demonstration of these results to commercial deployment of our batteries in real cars. We're excited about the partnership with Volkswagen and the different brands within the group, from Porsche to Audi to VW. We are going to do everything in our power to deliver these cells into real cars on the forecast, on the schedule that we've outlined in our previous remarks. And so with that, thank you all for joining. We look forward to reporting on progress as we go forward.
Gerry, you're muted if you're talking to us.
Gerry, you're muted.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Well, I'm looking for the right screen to turn back on again. Just a second. PowerPoint is still there. Okay. Where is it? I have so many windows open on my desktop. There we go.
Just spitballing here, but maybe we should start a little investment club in our automobile association.
Look, don't do that, because Alan told me don't show that investment. And later on, you can give me a call and I'll tell you what I did. The reason I had the slide up was that a friend of mine called and he said, I know you trade derivatives. Could you teach us on how to trade derivatives? I actually use that one as an example. Discussion.
Well,
you like the video?
That was great. Gerry, do you know of other companies that are doing the same thing and at the same level that this company is at? And the other question is investing.
Yeah.
Would you invest in QuantumScape?
Okay, if you're going to ask me that question, I never buy a stock. I always sell a put. And this is a company that I wanted to buy stock in. So I sold a put. And you guys know puts at all?
No.
A put is insurance. You're selling somebody insurance that their stock will never be worth less than a certain amount. So I sold insurance to somebody or to the market, okay? The stock was at $65 a share. I guaranteed somebody that it would never be less than $45 a share because I thought $40 a share was the right price for the stock. I have no knowledge whatsoever as to why that's correct. So don't take that to the bank. Somebody paid me $13 for that guarantee. So I have $13 in my pocket that says, if between now and the third week in February, the stock drops below $45 a share, I have to buy it. Otherwise, I got $13 for that. Now, I would be happy to buy it for $45, which is really only $32 for me.
But by the way, selling puts and calls has been referred to as picking up nickels and dimes in front of a steamroller that's coming at you.
Yeah. The reason I started doing it, and I started doing it in 1997 when an advisor called me and he said, you have this stock sitting here. What do you think is going to happen? I said, well, it'll probably go up. He said, you want to bank on that? And so my friends always told me, if you're in derivatives, you're gambling. No, if you hold stock, you're gambling. If you're in derivatives, you're mitigating the gamble. And I never buy any of these things. I always sell puts. I always sell calls. I learned my lesson by doing that. So yeah, I'm in front of the steamroller, but that's a really nice, safe place to be instead of under it.
So is anybody else as far along as QuantumScape? Do you know?
So I don't know if they're as far along. That's why this one was exciting. There's multiple groups. There's two more out of Stanford. There's one out of the University of Maryland that are working on a solid state. And I have referred to it before, the Stanford Storage X series. They've had multiple sessions on battery technology and other storage technologies. One session said by Stephen Chu, well, there's no way that solid state's ever going to make it. So don't bank on it, okay? And then the very next week, somebody gives a presentation on their results, on their experiments, and they say, we're within 2 years of production for this. And there's several companies doing solid state that will be in production probably within the next 2 years, but they didn't target the EV market. They targeted our cell phones because the same thing is for the cell phone, for your skateboard, for everything else. Solid state will solve a whole bunch of problems as far as lifetime, how fast it charges, how small it is. I didn't put it in my deck here, but I did the calculations based on what these guys have so far. They could actually increase the energy density of batteries by a factor of almost 10 because it's so much simpler to package. And in fact, they never handle metal lithium, which everybody else has to handle. So they're putting in lithium in a stable state in a compound into their materials. So that's part of what was exciting about how they went after the approach. But anyway, with a 10x increase in energy density, and with EVs now being 3 to 4 times more efficient than fossil fuel vehicles, do the math. 3 times 10 is 30. What's the energy density of gasoline versus the energy density of our conventional lithium-ion batteries? Just about 30 difference, 30x. So we're at the same energy density as we have for our conventional vehicles. So that's why it was exciting for me. These were the first ones, not just solving the problems, but they talked about the energy density too.
Well, it's great. Go ahead, Dave.
Well, it sounds to me like they've solved all the problems and they're at the point where they're just trying to figure out producing them, or they still have other.
That'll take 5 years
to actually produce them.
To create the manufacturing facilities, the equipment to do it. And that's what their estimate is. It'll take them 5 years to be able to do production volumes. Their production volumes, though, are for Volkswagen.
Was that mass produced? Because I've heard really good things about the ID3 in Europe and the ID4s coming here, and seen a lot of reviews, and they say they're great cars. And Toyota they've been involved in a lot of good things. So, or Volkswagen, I'm sorry. So I guess I'm wondering, when they say 5 years out, I actually looked at this stock a little while ago, and I thought 5 years might be too long for me, but I don't know.
But so the other thing I suggest you do, I will post the, I already have posted actually. I'll go back and make one fast change to it, put the date on this one thing. I've posted the presentation on there. I have both links, the 28-minute video that I have here and the 90-minute video that John sent to me. In the 90-minute video, you'll get more details, and there's a bunch of experts who are asked questions, and probably answering some of the questions that Zeno asked as well. And you saw some of the faces of the experts that will be answering the questions. Some are with the company, some have invested, some are on the board. What I didn't include was the announcement by one of the VPs from Volkswagen as to their intention and why they're excited and when they will be having these in their production vehicles. And this will be their battery. As long as they don't run any gotchas, this will be their battery going forward. And that's probably why the stock went nuts. But, you know, David, your question was the right one. And I actually talked to my friends about this. When I said, oh, should we invest in this? And I go, between now and 2025, 6 more companies can come up with something. Somebody may have something better. Somebody might be able to do it for less money. Somebody might be better in finance. You know, somebody may have a better contract. So you don't know where the stock will go.
Yeah, to wit, General Motors has been talking up a lot about a technology that I don't know what it is, but they say it's going to be similarly revolutionary.
Yeah, in a number of companies. So you're going to hear a bunch of announcements. The one thing that I've picked up from the Storage X series is this. We went for 100 years of battery research, probably spending 1/1000th of what we spent in the last 20 years. There is so much more money going into battery research now and so much more being found. If you can go to the Storage X series and listen to them, I'm not that technical. I can't follow them all, but I get a sense for what they need. I mean, they're looking at the shape of how the molecules link together on the anode and the cathode in order to make the battery work better. This isn't just mixing things together. It's how do you process the chemicals when they come together? What temperature, what pressure, what humidity is around it in the chamber? It's the same kind of thing that happened with semiconductors. And that's not just for the solid state, that's for the liquid ones as well.
I want to follow up on particular Andy. I don't know, he's gone black on the screen here, but his knowledge of China. Yeah, I would certainly raise the question of whether some Chinese company is going to outrun these American solid states and they will clean up. Somebody actually, this video early on, he said something, they're having trouble actually getting this into production, obviously. And that means that there's all kinds of chances for somebody else to beat them to it.
I don't think he said they're having a problem getting into production. They have not tried to get into production. Okay, they've been doing R&D for 10 years. In production, if you go through the Stanford series, there's a number of prototypes that are shown for solid state and for other batteries that are really, really good. But then how do you make it in large quantity? And that's a whole different question.
So I had a question about the lithium being used in this new solid state battery.
Yeah.
How does it compare to lithium in a lithium-ion battery per kilowatt hour?
They use, I don't know what percentage is, but they have a chart someplace in the video. They use a lot less.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and so this could, and then you guys know about the Jeffrey's paradox. So I also kind of started thinking about that. So what are the implications of this being cheaply available? Will the car get more powerful?
We have more powerful.
So if a resource becomes cheaper, we tend to use more of it. And so the balance, the global impact of something like this is not just like a reduction necessarily, but it could actually be an expansion of use of resources.
John.
Yeah, well, I would say good points, Zeno, but because they're using a significant less in each battery of the lithium, and combined with the fact that the lifetime of the battery is extended, that's a question that may address your comment. Who knows? But it doesn't necessarily indicate that that's going to be an expansion of resource requirements, and also they're finding a lot more places that lithium exists. But anyways, the other thing I wanted to say that I've been dying to say is just regardless about the future of this company or the market value or whatever, one of the cool things that I liked in this video is the comment of current density.
Mm-hmm.
We work with current density a lot at Thunderstruck because people want to put a small battery in a high performance vehicle, and it just isn't a good match because they'll overstress the battery. With a battery that has it's consistent to have a battery that has a long life and a high energy, a high current density, because it suggests that the process of converting chemical potential into electrical energy is actually a consuming element in the process in the battery. So when you have a longer life battery, it makes sense that you would also have a higher current density battery, because the process of taking current out of the battery doesn't damage it. And the fact that they could do such high rates, usually in a battery, the batteries like for sports cars and so forth in the electric industry, they might have a 20 C, in other words, a very high current rate, but they have a very low volume density, so or high density, so the battery would take up more space. In this case, it's just not the case. So it's a very exciting, whoever wins this race, if it's QuantumScape or anybody else, it's going to be exciting because of the implications of how one quality that we like also impacts the other qualities we like. Anyway, that's all.
So I agree with what John just said, everything about it. But I want to point out to everybody that racetrack that he showed in the video was just a picture of a racetrack.
Right.
This battery has not been in a car yet.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah. All right.
I would comment to Zeno. Elon Musk said that they had enough in their 10,000 acres that they bought in Nevada of lithium to supply Tesla. So, I mean, the world sourcing of lithium, I don't know whether Tesla's going to bring that off or not, but domestic production, presumably in an efficient way, is being promised at least.
Brad, do you have a comment? And by the way, they've changed Zoom now so that the hand held up. I never had the screen up that shows the hands held up, so I was always looking for this. But now it actually has a little hand on there.
Yeah, no, I try to use that. So I was curious. I know John of Thunderstruck said that you guys were able to, although you haven't, I think last time you mentioned this, you hadn't done it yet, were able to install aftermarket batteries in the Nissan Leaf. Does anyone know if aftermarket batteries, meaning non-Nissan factory batteries, are available for the Leaf or for any other electric vehicle right now?
Well, no. I think there are companies that are doing rebuilds. It's kind of far between. You'd have to look it up. But no, we don't particularly do that. What we do is we use the batteries for other purposes. And we believe that there's no reason not to be able to put another battery into the pack if it would fit. And then use, if it's the same voltage, etc.
But that option doesn't exist for like the Nissan Leaf right now.
It's just some aftermarket stuff going on, but
okay.
But Brad, about 3 months ago, maybe longer, in one of our decks, Alan had forwarded to me a map and a link for the places that you can have your Nissan Leaf battery replaced. There are none in Northern California, I think there was one in Southern California. There might have been one up in Washington State, and these are the ones who are actually announcing they're doing it. So I thought I could just go to a dealer and have it done, and you know, most of them don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, and the dealer charges what, $5,500 the last time I looked for a new battery?
Well, if that's all they're charging, then and that's installed.
That was the last time I looked. That was many years ago.
That's what the battery was supposed to list for. I could find no dealer that would sell it to me. And then one said he would charge me $1,000 to install it. I don't think it's that complicated to install. All right, so going on. Yeah. Going on. Sorry, I didn't change any of the links here. Next time around, we're going to have electric bikes. And Andy, hope you can, I sent you a message today, coordinate with the others. If you need me to jump back in and give you the names that were sent to me, let me know. And if they're useful for the presentation, that's great.
I just sent you guys an email just like 5 minutes ago, but basically I can talk for hours about it. So I don't, but if you've got someone you want to join, you can, but I got no problem filling all the time with information and answering questions.
Well, maybe we'll just do it that way then, right? I think
and you'll see, I can send you my outline, but
okay, that's good. I'll look for it in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, it's my rough outline. It's coming right now.
Okay, that's good. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. It was good seeing y'all. See you in a month. And Alan, you and I should send out a message soliciting people who want to become president or who are willing to become president, whether they want to or not.